That confession from Smokey Robinson wasn't just an admission.
You just turned 85.
Yeah,
You don't even look close to it.
I love you.
How do you feel?
50.
Yeah.
It was the end of half a lifetime of secrets. At 85 years old, the man who wrote America's greatest love songs finally revealed the truth. He had loved two women simultaneously for decades. One was his wife, the other was Diana Ross. For 50 years, he kept it hidden. But in 2023, Smokey Robinson sat down for an interview and said the words that would shake Motown history forever. This is the story of love, betrayal, music, and the man who proved that even legends can't control their hearts. Hit subscribe, because what you're about to hear changes everything you thought you knew about the golden age of soul. In 1940, in Detroit's poor North End neighborhood, a boy named William Robinson Jr. was born. His father was African American, his mother of mixed French descent. In Smokey's veins ran Nigerian, Scandinavian, Portuguese, and Cherokee heritage, a blend that would later define the multicultural sound of Motown. When he was 3, his parents separated. By 10, his mother had died. Smokey lived with his sister, Geraldine, and her husband in a cramped house with 12 people. But it was there, amid poverty and chaos, that his love for music began. The nickname Smokey came from his uncle Claude, who took him to cowboy movies and gave him the name Smokey Joe. That uncle didn't just give him a name, he gave him a sense of bravery, like the cowboys they watched together on screen.
At Northern High School, Smokey formed a doo-wop group called the Five Chimes in 1955. 2 years later, they became the Matadors, adding Claudette Rogers, who would later become Smokey's wife, and Bobby Rogers. By 1958, they were the Miracles, and in August 1957, during a failed audition at Brunswick Records, Smokey met Berry Gordy, the man who would change his life forever. Smokey carried a notebook containing over 100 songs he'd written since high school. Gordy saw something rare, a young man who could sing, write, and understand musical structure. He helped them record Got a Job, and the partnership that would build Motown was born. In 1959, Smokey married Claudette Rogers. That same year, Shop Around became Motown's first #1 hit, opening the door for the small, black-owned label to become a cultural icon. But behind the fairy tale success, a different story was unfolding, one that would haunt Smokey for the rest of his life. Building an empire. From the mid-1960s, Smokey Robinson became more than just a singer. He became the creative force behind Motown's greatest hits: My Girl for The Temptations, Two Lovers for Mary Wells, Ain't That Peculiar for Marvin Gaye, and Floyd Joy for The Supremes. Every song carried Smokey's signature: light, refined lyrics paired with deep emotion, simple enough to sing along to, but profound enough to break your heart. Berry Gordy trusted Smokey so completely that in 1969, he made him vice president of Motown, responsible for scouting and training new artists. When the songwriting trio Holland Dozier Holland left Motown over contract disputes, Smokey was the one Gordy trusted to keep the label's sound alive. But success came at a cost. By the late 1960s, Smokey had 2 young children with Claudette. The Miracles' touring schedule grew heavier, over 200 days a year away from home.
When offered the vice presidential post, Smokey planned to retire to be with his family. But Tears of a Clown unexpectedly became a global hit, forcing him to stay 2 more years. In 1971, Smokey performed his final show with the Miracles in Washington, D.C. Standing backstage, he told his bandmates simply, "It's time." The stage lights dimmed, and in that silence, Smokey began to face what every great career leaves behind: emptiness. But it wasn't the music he was running from. It was the truth about his marriage and the woman he couldn't stop thinking about. In the 1970s, while Smokey and Claudette's marriage was quietly unraveling, Diana Ross reappeared in his life. They had known each other since 1954, when Ross was just 8 years old. Two kids from Detroit's North End who grew up with music and witnessed Motown's birth together. By the 1970s, both had become icons. In a 2023 interview with The Guardian, Smokey finally admitted the truth. "I was married at the time. We were working together, and it just happened." The affair lasted about a year, and then Diana ended it. "After we'd been seeing each other for a while," Smokey explained, "Diana said to me she couldn't do that because she knew Claudette and she knew I still loved my wife. And I did. I loved my wife very much." That statement, "I loved my wife very much," wasn't an excuse. It was a confession from a man who had lived truthfully with his feelings, even knowing it brought him pain. But Diana wasn't the only affair. For 20 years, Smokey carried on an on-and-off relationship with a woman known publicly only as Candy. That relationship led to the birth of his son, Trey Robinson, in 1984, while he was still married to Claudette.
Guilt, affection, and loss intertwined, becoming the raw material for the introspective songs Smokey wrote during those years. Albums like A Quiet Storm and Being With You weren't just music, they were confessions set to melody. In 1974, Smokey and Claudette separated. Though they maintained mutual respect, they lived apart for nearly a decade before officially divorcing in 1986. Years later, when asked what he had learned from that period, Smokey answered with brutal honesty, "I learned that we are capable of loving more than one person at the same time." He continued, "Society has told us that's a taboo. It doesn't mean one person isn't enough or isn't good enough. It's all about emotion. If we could control love, nobody would ever take that chance. Why would you open your heart to potential hurt and vulnerability?" That confession shook the music world. But Smokey wasn't done revealing secrets. In 1983, Smokey received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 1987, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 1988, he won a Grammy for Just to See Her. By 1993, he received the National Medal of Arts, the highest artistic honor in the United States. In 2006, he was celebrated at the Kennedy Center Honors alongside Dolly Parton and Andrew Lloyd Webber. Bob Dylan once called Smokey America's greatest living poet. That compliment is often quoted because it came from someone who rarely praises others publicly. In 2002, Smokey married Frances Gladney, an interior designer he met in Los Angeles. Their marriage has been quiet but enduring, what Smokey describes as the peace I needed after the storm. They were friends for years before dating and bonded over coconut shrimp at a joint birthday dinner. "I married you because of coconut shrimp," Smokey jokes to this day. Frances gave Smokey something he'd never had before: stability without judgment. But in 2025, that peace would be shattered.
In May 2025, 4 former employees filed a lawsuit against Smokey and Frances in Los Angeles Superior Court, alleging sexual assault, false imprisonment, and creating a hostile work environment. They demanded over $50 million in damages. Smokey denied all accusations, calling them fabricated in support of an extortionate scheme, and countersued for $500 million for defamation and elder abuse. The criminal investigation by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department remains ongoing. Amid the controversy, Smokey continued to perform. He appeared at American Music Honors alongside Bruce Springsteen and John Fogerty, standing before thousands with calm composure. Those who have followed him for years note that no matter the scandal, Smokey Robinson always chooses the stage, where music gives him control over everything. And at 85,
he's still not slowing down. In April 2025, Smokey released a new album titled What the World Needs Now. In a conversation with CBS News, he said simply, "I want people to be inspired. I hope that's my legacy." That same year, he launched the Legacy Tour, marking the 50th anniversary of A Quiet Storm. The tour opened in Glasgow on July 3rd. On stage, his voice retained its warmth and control, even after 8 decades in music. At every stop, audiences stood to sing along, just as they had since the 1960s. Smokey still sleeps 4 hours a night. No alcohol, no cigarettes, no sugar. His personal physician once said, "He's the only patient I know who never takes a day off." His wealth is estimated at $150 million, but money has never been the point. At a recent Las Vegas event, Smokey said simply, "I'll keep writing until God says stop."
In a recent interview, when asked about Diana Ross, Smokey smiled softly. "I've known Diana Ross since she was 8 years old, man. She's precious to me. She's my longest living friend." That statement captured a friendship spanning more than 70 years, from 2 children in Detroit to 2 legends of American soul. From Detroit's impoverished North End to the grandest stages of America, Smokey Robinson has completed a journey few can match. Over 6 decades, he's been more than the voice of Motown. He's been its storyteller. From Shop Around to A Quiet Storm, from the tracks of My Tears to Being With You, he turned human emotion into melody and melody into collective memory. His confession, "I learned that we are capable of loving more than one person at the same time," reveals not just the man behind the legend, but reminds us that the greatest music always begins with honesty. At 85, Smokey Robinson still stands in the light, as if time itself cannot stop him. He doesn't need to seek immortality. He's lived long enough to prove that legacy doesn't belong to the past. It lives in every note he still sings. If you've ever listened to a Smokey Robinson song and felt something both familiar and new, that's his power. The ability to give emotion, a melody. Share this video if you believe music still has room for honesty and humanity. And subscribe to continue discovering the stories behind the legends.